It's been 111 years since the Titanic sank deep in the ocean, and even today, its wreck tells a sorrowful story. This goes back to April 10th, 1912, the day when the largest ship of its time, the RMS Titanic, set out on its very first voyage. The ship was traveling from Southampton to New York. On board were people from all walks of life, from wealthy businessmen and famous actors to third-class passengers, everyone heading to America in search of a new life. Altogether, there were 2,240 passengers. The ship was under the command of Senior Captain Edward John Smith. At that time, both the public and the media were extremely excited about the Titanic because it was the biggest and most powerful ship in the world. The Titanic measured about 882 feet in length and 173 feet in height. Its interiors were designed so luxuriously that they could even outshine today's five-star hotels. Inside, it had 480 rooms, stained glass windows, wood paneling, 2 grand staircases, a heated swimming pool, Turkish baths, a gym for luxurious dining halls, 2 barbershops, and even a library. The cost of building this ship was around $7.5 million at that time, which is equivalent to nearly $400 million today. Because of the technology and safety features used in its construction, people began to call the Titanic unsinkable. In fact, many believed it was a ship that could never go down. Some even said that not even God himself could sink this ship. The Titanic was built by the White Star Line Company, which had already built 137 ships before this. The media kept spreading the idea that this ship was completely unsinkable, and public fascination only grew stronger. On April 10th, 1912, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Titanic's engines roared to life. Passengers waved farewell to their loved ones for the last time, completely unaware of the tragedy that awaited them ahead. Just 2 days into its journey, another ship, which was slightly ahead of the Titanic, sent a radio signal, giving the Titanic its first ice warning. The message warned the crew that many icebergs were floating in the ocean and advised them to proceed with caution. In response to these warnings, the Titanic changed its direction twice to avoid danger, but the speed was never reduced. For 2 days straight, the Titanic continued at nearly 40 kilometers per hour toward its destination. During these 2 days, the Titanic received 7 more ice warnings, but Captain Smith and his crew completely ignored them. Instead of slowing down, they increased the ship's speed to its maximum. As time passed, the sunlight faded, and soon night fell. The temperature also dropped sharply. The night of April 14th, 1912 was unusually dark, pitch black across the vast ocean. Yet the Titanic pressed forward at full speed. Usually, ships had a designated lookout spot on the top deck where a crew member would stay at night to spot any obstacles ahead and alert the control room. This was an extremely difficult job because of the freezing cold, strong winds, and the darkness of night. At 11:39 p.m., a lookout named Frederick Fleet, who was on duty that night, suddenly spotted a huge iceberg directly in the Titanic's path. He immediately alerted the crew and shouted that a massive iceberg was ahead, urging them to steer the ship to the left as quickly as possible. The engines were thrown into reverse to reduce speed, and maximum power was used to change direction. But because of the ship's enormous speed, it only turned slightly. Moments later, the Titanic crashed directly into the iceberg. This was no small iceberg. It measured about 400 feet tall and 200 feet wide, weighing nearly 1.5 million tons, and was around 100,000 years old. For about 10 full seconds, the Titanic scraped along the iceberg. The collision ripped a huge gash in the ship's fuel room. After the impact, Captain Smith inspected the ship to assess the damage. To his shock, he discovered that the Titanic would sink in less than 2 hours. The entire crew was stunned because they had believed the Titanic was unsinkable. The advanced technology on which the Titanic was built had completely failed. The ship was designed with 16 watertight compartments, and the idea was that even if 4 of them filled with water, the Titanic could still stay afloat. But the way the iceberg had struck the side caused multiple compartments to flood rapidly. Water was pouring in faster than anyone had imagined. And this meant that now nothing could save the Titanic from sinking. It was midnight, and the front part of the ship had already begun to submerge into the water. At that moment, Captain Smith ordered the radio operator to continuously send out distress signals, hoping that a nearby ship might receive them and come to their rescue. The senior radio operator, Jack Phillips, kept transmitting signal after signal with the hope that someone would pick it up and help them. Finally, after 20 minutes, a ship named RMS Carpathia received the Titanic's distress signal. Communicating with Titanic's radio operator, Carpathia decided that it would come to rescue all of Titanic's passengers. But the problem was that even though Carpathia was on its way, it was still 107 kilometers away. Even at top speed, it would take Carpathia about 3.5 hours to reach the Titanic. And the Titanic didn't have that much time left. Inside the ship, most passengers weren't too afraid yet. Many believed that since the Titanic was the unsinkable ship, this must just be some minor technical issue, and there was nothing to worry about. After all, the company's advertisements had repeatedly claimed that this ship could never sink. Meanwhile, water kept flooding into the compartments. The front part of the ship sank deeper into the sea, and now passengers began to realize that the ship was indeed going down. Chaos spread everywhere. The forward section was so filled with water that nearly half of the ship was already submerged. Because of this, the rear part of the ship was lifted high into the air. Panic and confusion spread all around, and people began running desperately across the decks. Seeing this, the captain ordered that passengers be lowered into lifeboats, starting with women and children first. But there were only 20 lifeboats on the ship. In panic, passengers began fighting with each other to secure a spot and save their lives. Each lifeboat had the capacity to carry 65 people, but in the rush, some boats were launched with only 28 passengers on board. Many tried desperately to get into the boats, while third-class passengers were left behind, trapped inside the ship to drown. At 1:48 a.m., the last lifeboat was lowered into the ocean. Still, about 1,500 people remained on board, not even allowed to leave their compartments. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic split into two parts. Slowly, the second half of the ship also sank into the ocean. It took less than 3 hours for this unsinkable ship to disappear forever. Those who were trapped inside the ship sank along with it, while those who tried to swim likely died from hypothermia as the freezing water caused their blood to clot. Captain Smith also went down with the Titanic. Heartbroken by what was happening, he chose to remain in his cabin and awaited his death until the ship fully sank. When the RMS Carpathia, the ship that had set out to rescue Titanic, arrived at around 4 o'clock in the morning, it found an eerie silence. It was as if nothing had happened. The sea had calmed after swallowing the Titanic. Hundreds of bodies floated on the surface of the ocean. Some of the people who had been placed in lifeboats had also died from the freezing cold. The RMS Carpathia managed to rescue about 700 survivors. News of the Titanic tragedy quickly spread across the media, and numerous investigations were launched. Some shocking facts came to light. One revelation was that there had been another ship just 37 kilometers away from where the Titanic sank, a ship that could have reached in time and saved all the passengers. This ship was the SS Californian. According to Wikipedia, an hour before the Titanic struck the iceberg, the SS Californian had sent a message to warn the Titanic to proceed with caution because of dangerous ice ahead. However, after that, the SS Californian's radio was turned off, and the ship decided to stop for the night to avoid the ice. It was close enough that its passengers could actually see the Titanic in the distance. Yet, despite this, the SS Californian did not come to rescue the Titanic's passengers. When rockets were being fired into the sky from the Titanic, the people on board the SS Californian also saw them, but they assumed that the wealthy passengers on the Titanic were simply hosting a party. Because of this misunderstanding, they did nothing and left the Titanic to sink. The disaster was not only the fault of the Californian, but also of the Titanic's crew. The White Star Line Company had placed only 20 lifeboats on the Titanic, even though there was space for 40. The company believed lifeboats were unnecessary since the ship was considered unsinkable. The second mistake came from Captain Smith. On the day of departure, a mandatory safety drill was scheduled, but he canceled it, thinking there was no need because the Titanic could never sink. The third mistake came from crew member Robert Hickens, who was at the steering wheel. He was ordered to turn the ship to the left, but due to a misunderstanding, he steered it to the right instead, sending the Titanic directly into the path of the iceberg. Many articles also state that the Titanic had received several warnings about dangerous ice ahead and was advised to slow down. But despite these warnings, the ship kept moving at top speed in the same direction. Captain Smith refused to reduce speed because he wanted the Titanic to reach its destination as quickly as possible. He wanted to prove that not only was this the largest and most luxurious ship in the world, but also the fastest. It ultimately took 70 years before the wreck of the Titanic was discovered deep in the ocean. In 1985, the Titanic was discovered under the ocean for the very first time, and its pictures were also taken. The wreck was found at a depth of about 3,800 meters, nearly 3.8 kilometers beneath the sea, lying in two separate pieces. These two parts were around 600 meters apart from each other, silently telling their story even today from the depths of the ocean. According to estimates, ocean bacteria are slowly eating away at the wreck, and by the year 2030, its remains may completely disappear forever. I hope you enjoyed the video. For more such videos, don't forget to subscribe, press the bell icon, and give the video a like.